We have crowned champions in Super Rugby Aupiki and Super W. The semi-finalists are set in Europe's Champions and Challenge Cup. The top of the table, Brave Lupus, go down in Japan League 1. And England and France continue their unbeaten ways in the Women's Six Nations. Hello and welcome to the Rugby Roundup, April 16th, 2025. My name is Big Mike, here at Big Mike Sports. Now let's talk some rugby. On this week's episode, we look at last week's round 3 of the Women's Six Nations, as well as the quarterfinals of the Champions Cup and Challenge Cup, Japan League 1, Super Rugby Pacific, Major League Rugby, Super Rugby Americas, all continued with great games in the round robin, and 2 champions were crowned in Women's Super Rugby action in Australasia. But enough of all that. Let's get to the roundup. And we are going to start with international action in the women's game. It was round 3 of 5 in the Women's Six Nations. Going into this one, France and England had not faced defeat, and Italy and Wales had not tasted victory. We started in France with a 42-12 French victory over Wales. This one kept Wales winless and pushed France for the meantime to the top of the table until England went to Ireland and won 49-5. After 3 games, they are maximum points with a points differential of 132 points. Average winning margin so far of 44. In the final game, it was Scotland versus Italy. Scotland still had an outside chance, but went down to the raging Italian women 25-17. This was the first victory for Italy. Scotland now out of the hunt. And on the bottom of the table, we still have Wales. After this week, our unbeaten international teams are the Georgia men's squad, and France and England's women's teams, our winless international teams, are the Germans, who did go down 5 games in the Rugby Europe Championship, the Welsh men and the Welsh women. Not a lovely time to be a Wales rugby supporter. Now to club action. We did not have any URC games. We did not have any top 14 games. We did not have any premiership games, but we did have the quarterfinals in the Champions Cup and 3 games that were very, very one-sided, and one that was nice and tight. Let's start with Leinster and Glasgow. These are the top 2 teams in the URC. Leinster won this one 52-zip. Glasgow did not register a single point on the board. They are out, but they are still in contention in the URC, where they are defending champions. Bordeaux versus Munster. This was one of my big 3 games from last week. Bordeaux ran away with this one. 47-29. It was Northampton taking on Castries. Couple of disappointing teams in their local competitions, with Northampton winning this one 51-16. They know what to do in the knockout games. In the final quarterfinal of the weekend, Toulon hosted Toulouse, 2 top 3 teams from the top 14. This one was 18-all going into the 80th minute. And then Toulouse, Thomas Ramos, with the 80th minute penalty, gave Toulouse the 21-18 win. So in our semi-finals will be Leinster, Bordeaux, Northampton and Toulouse, 1 Irish squad, 1 English squad and 2 French. In the Challenge Cup quarterfinals, Edinburgh got out early against the Bulls and held them off. This one was 34-28, eliminating the last remaining South African squad. Ospreys went down to Lyon 20-18. Goodbye, Wales. Racing 92, who are not doing well in the top 14, got up over Connacht 43-40. And in the final game, the English battle, it was Bath taking on Gloucester. And Bath won this one 61-26, so your semi-finalists in the Challenge Cup: Edinburgh, Lyon, Racing 92 and Bath. One Scottish team, two French and an English. So England and France are the only teams or only countries left that can do the double. Now, Japan League 1 Division 1 round 15 of 18. We started out with a Friday night game as the Saitama Wild Knights got up against the Honda Heat 53-33. The Mitsubishi Dynaboars over the Cannon Eagles 38-28. Cannon Eagles staying in 7th. In the big upset of the weekend, it was the Blue Revs over Brave Lupus 56-26. Biggest loss of Brave Lupus's season, just their second loss. The Kobe Steelers got up over the bottom of the table D-Rocks 33-20. Kubota Spears 30-10 over Suntory Sun Goliath took them into second place. And the Black Rams beat Toyota Verblitz 37-7. The top three are very tight with 12 wins, a draw and 2 losses each. The Wild Knights on top, followed by Kubota Spears and Brave Lupus. Rounding out our top 6, we have the Blue Revs, the Steelers, and Suntory Sun Goliath. Super Rugby Pacific now. The Crusaders have found themselves on top of the table because the Chiefs went down to the Waratahs in Sydney on Friday night. This one was 21-14. Great game by the Waratahs. The Crusaders are on top after beating the Hurricanes also by 7 points. 31-24. Hurricanes nearly got it at the end, but couldn't quite get over the line. Blues dominated against Moana Pacifica and won 36-17. This puts them in 9th place, but within a win of the top 6. The Highlanders took it to the Fijian Drua 43-20. They are now in 7th. And in the big Aussie battle, the Reds went down to the Brumbies 39-26. So, Crusaders on top of the table, followed by the Chiefs. Brumbies in their rightful spot of 3rd as the top Australian team, followed by the Reds, the Waratahs and the Force. The Brumbies, Reds and Waratahs have all had 5 wins out of 8 so far. Very tight with these Australian teams all stepping up and playing fantastically. In round 9 of Major League Rugby, the San Diego Legion, after winning their first 5, have now lost for the 3rd time in a row. This time to the defending champion New England Free Jacks, who are in a bit of a resurgence themselves. 39-12. Nola Gold got over at Old Glory DC 51-29. Houston Sabercats sealing the deal, top of the table in the Western Conference. But they went down against the Miami Sharks 31-22. RFC LA went down to the Utah Warriors 45-28. And could Anthem RC do it? Could they get their first victory? No, they lost again, this time to the top of the Eastern Conference, Chicago Hounds 28-20 over Anthem RC. Chicago, New England, DC, and New Orleans lead the Eastern Conference. Houston, Utah, San Diego, and RFC LA are the top 4 in the West. Super Rugby Americas now. Top of the table, Pampas went down to the Dogos XV 22-8. losing by 2 converted tries. Selknam stayed in the top 4 with a 39-19 victory over the hapless Cobras, who still have not had a victory. And Yakare beat second place Penarol 36-8. So the 2 top teams on the table did lose, meaning that the top 4 is a lot closer, currently looking at Pampas, Penarol, Selknam and Dogor. To women's club action, it was the Super Rugby Aupiki final. After getting 1 victory each against each other, the Blues took on Matatu at Eden Park after the Moana Pacifica Blues game. This one was close, and it was an intercept try in less than 10 minutes that sealed the deal for the Blues women. Despite having a red card at the end, they won 26-19 in one of my big 3 games. They won 2 times in a row, first team to do so. In the Super W final, the Waratahs completely dominated the Reds, 43-21. Unfortunately, the Reds went down for the 5th time in the grand final. After all of that club action this weekend, there are no unbeaten club teams left for this season. Winless club teams, we have the Hurricanes Paw and the Blues women, who both finished winless in their competitions, and Anthem RC and Cobras are still yet to have a win. There were no Sevens games last weekend. A reminder, they will not be back until the first weekend of May. Now let's talk about me, Big Mike, here at Big Mike Sports. Best way to talk to me is at Big Mike Sports NZ on the Insta and Big Mike Sports on YouTube. Also, if you leave a comment under one of my episodes, I'll try my best to have it a read. Still learning how to reply. My apologies. Big Mike. Did have a question under the Spotify this week. Have I played Rugby 25? No, I'm not paying full price for that nonsense. There's been no good rugby games since Rugby 08. The Rugby Challenge games were okay. These days, it just looks like an absolute shambles. I have watched a few things on YouTube. It doesn't look the prettiest, but it does have an absolute, let's say it, a shit ton of international and club teams. It even has the Bangladeshi team and the Bangladeshi Pro League. Really makes me think that I'm not talking about enough rugby leagues on this episode. These podcasts, if you will. But no, I haven't played it. I'll pick it up if it goes on sale, 100%. But I just can't commit when it's still $100 and something in the PlayStation Store. Okay, let's look forward to this week in rugby. Starting with the international games, no international men's games. There are a few lower level European games, but we don't need to talk about all of that. We'll start with the Women's Six Nations, round 4 of 5. Things are getting juicy. France and England are sitting on top. No one can catch them. France will be taking on Italy in Italy. Italy will have a little bit of momentum from last week, but France will know they need to keep on pushing to challenge England at the top. Speaking of England, they are hosting Scotland in the great old battle. England versus Scotland. Oh, Scotland disappointed everybody last week, and they are probably in line for a good old thrashing. And speaking of thrashing, Ireland will need to get back on the horse, and they are taking on Wales, and there's not much chance of Wales winning this one. Also, 2 teams that will be playing in the World Cup this year, Spain and South Africa, will be taking on each other in international women's action. Now to club games. Let's start with men's club games in the URC. First game of the weekend sees a top 8 battle as Edinburgh take on the Sharks. The Sharks are in the top 4. They're looking pretty comfortable, but they do have all these teams on their tail and will need another 1 or 2 in the last few rounds to guarantee their spot. Then we have the Lions taking on Benetton. Benetton are sitting in 7th and will need this win to hold on to their top 8th position. Lions are in 14th and have an outside chance on making the 8. Ospreys are taking on Cardiff, 2 Welsh teams sitting outside of the top 8 but close. Will the loser of this one be knocked out? We will find out. Speaking of 2 teams sitting outside the 8 but close, it is Stormers hosting Connacht. Then, big juicy one this weekend, 5th taking on 3rd. Munster taking on the Bulls in Munster. Now, a good victory from Munster will bring them even closer to that top 4. Bulls are sitting in 3rd. They can chase 2nd place, currently held by Glasgow. Bottom of the table Dragons will be taking on their countrymen Scarlets, who do sit in 11th. Top of the table Leinster against 6th place Ulster. As we've seen with these 5th through 14th, 5th through 13th, if you will. One loss and you do get knocked out. So Ulster will be looking for the big upset this weekend. Final game of the weekend, my beloved Zebre, sitting in 15th, taking on the 2nd place Glasgow Warriors. To the top 14. Well, we start with Bo taking on Bordeaux. Bordeaux are sitting in 2nd place, 5 points behind Toulouse. Castres are hosting my beloved Varn. Varn are sitting on the bottom of the table, looking very unlikely to get out of the relegation zone. Castres sitting in 5th. Lyon take on Montpellier. This is 7th versus 8th, both teams chasing that top 6 finish. La Rochelle have slipped down to 10th, and they are hosting the 4th place Bayonne. Perpignan versus Racine 92, 2 teams still at risk for a potential relegation spot. Toulon versus Clermont. This is 3rd taking on 6th. Toulon will need a win to stay up and hope for that top 2 finish to give them the week off in the first week of the finals. Final game, Stade Francais, currently 12th, taking on Toulouse at the top of the table. Now to Premiership action. Newcastle hosts Northampton. This is 10th versus 8th, but Northampton will be riding all of their momentum from their big quarterfinal victory last weekend in the Champions Cup. Then we have 9th taking on 1st as Exeter hosts Bath. Harlequins versus Salé. 7th versus 5th. Both teams still within a game of 3rd place Leicester. Now it is Saracens hosting Gloucester. This is 6th versus 4th, another tight game. And then, looking nearly at the top of the table, we have 2nd versus 3rd, Bristol versus Leicester. The Champions and Challenge Cup are taking time off until that first weekend of May, where we will see the semi-finals. Now we've got Japan League 1 Division 1 round 16, just 3 rounds left before we get to the finals. This week we actually see the top 6 teams taking on the bottom 6 teams. It is 12th versus 3rd as the D-Rocks host Brave Lupus. 2nd versus 11th as the Kubota Spears host the Honda Heat. Newly top of the table, Saitama Wild Knights are taking on the 8th place Black Rams, who will still be hoping for a top 6 finish. Kobe Steelers versus the Dynaboars. This is 5th versus 9th. The Blue Revs, who are still in 4th despite that huge victory last week, are taking on the Yokohama Cannon Eagles, who are down in 7th and need that victory to hold on to hope. And Toyota Verblitz are more than a game away from being out of the relegation zone, and can they keep on climbing when they take on the 6th place Suntory Sun Goliath? Super Rugby Pacific action. The 4th place Reds have the week off. We start with a very, very curious one. Top of the table Crusaders taking on the Blues. Earlier in the season, this one was close. The Blues now have a little bit of momentum, but the Crusaders need to win to hold on to their top spot. The Drua are hosting the Waratahs. The Fijian Drua have only won 1 game out of 7 so far this year, and the Waratahs will be riding high, currently in 5th after beating the Chiefs. Moana Pacifica are hosting the Brumbies. This is 10th versus 3rd. Now, Moana Pacifica do not want to lose too many more games and lose touch with the top 6, but the Brumbies are eyeing up a top 2 finish. It is the Chiefs hosting the Highlanders. This is 2nd versus 7th in New Zealand. And our final game of the week, it is 6th versus 8th, as the Force are hoping to hold on to their top 6 spot, taking on the Hurricanes, who are 1 win away from jumping them. Major League Rugby, Anthem RC having the week off. Bottom of the Western Conference, it is the Seattle Seawolves taking on RFCLA. Old Glory DC take on the Utah Warriors. This is 3rd in the East taking on 2nd in the West. It is a juicy one, as the New England Free Jacks, who have a bit of momentum and are sitting 2nd in the East, are taking on the top of the West, Houston Sabercats. We have the Chicago Hounds, who are 7 from 8, hosting the Miami Sharks. In our final game, can the San Diego Legion bounce back against NOLA Gold? There are no games in Super Rugby Americas this week. Now, last weekend we had the Blues winning Super Rugby Aupiki and the Waratahs winning Super W. There was a big clash on Thursday in Auckland. This is going to be the 2 champions taking on each other for the very first time. Hopefully, potentially, we might get a combined competition one day. How amazing would that be? It is the Blues hosting the Waratahs. Interesting fact, in the preseason, this one finished 36 all. No 7s this week. So let's get to the Big Mike Big 3. So, if you've only got time to watch one, follow one, see one, whatever, hey, how about you make sure it's one of these guys? In Big Mike's Big 3. So our honourable mentions this week, we are looking in the URC. It is Munster versus the Bulls. This is 5th versus 3rd. Top 14, a top 6 clash as Toulon hosts Clermont. And the one I just mentioned from Major League Rugby as the New England Free Jacks host the Houston Sabercats. But my Big 3 this week. Hopefully not too biased, but looking at it, it might be a little bit biased. In the Premiership, we have 2nd versus 3rd. Both teams are chasing Bath. It is Bristol hosting Leicester. In Super Rugby, it is the Crusaders versus the Blues. I know I'm putting the Blues in here. They're only in 9th, but this one's one of the biggest rivalries in Southern Hemisphere rugby, full stop. Can the Blues continue their momentum, or will the Crusaders hold on to top spot? And in the final game, it is the Battle of the Champions. It is the 2 Super Rugby Women's Champions, as the Blues host the Waratahs, 2 dominant teams with only 1 loss this season, 2 teams that drew 36 all in the preseason. Whoa! That's us for this week. Another Rugby Roundup up and another Rugby Roundup down. It is always a pleasure. Thank you for being here with me to talk rugby. So from the bottom of mine, let me just say, I hope you have a beautiful Easter, if you believe in it, if you follow it, if you do your little Easters. And if not, how about you just have a beautiful week and you watch some beautiful rugby.